Sit back, relax, and take a ride with us on the GunBlog VarietyCast, Episode 8. Welcome back to the GunBlog VarietyCast. I'm your host, Sean from NC GunBlog, and with me today is Adam from Guns, Cars, Tech Blog. How are you doing, Adam?
Better than I deserve. How are you doing today, Sean?
Doing pretty good. Oh, I got to drive about 200 miles today. That was fun.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I got to go to Butner and Goldsboro. It was like the opposite directions.
Oh, good.
And, sometimes it's okay. You go in two opposite directions, but when you have to go around the big city in the middle...
Oh.
Yeah. So there's not like a direct route to either one of them. So let's go with the Tactical Dog and Fitness Report. 37 dog walking miles last week, and still lots of Frisbee fun. Anytime I go grab that Frisbee, she's like, woohoo, let's go outside and play Frisbee. So, yeah, it's pretty good.
Good. Well, Tactical Dog is punishing me for putting her on a diet. Pretty much every day this week, she's woken up at about 2:30 a.m. This morning, she woke up at 2, and then as soon as my head hit the pillow after being up with her for like 20 minutes, she woke up again. And so I was up from 2:30 to 3:30 with the dog. She's very, very angry with me. So we're going to drug her tonight with Benadryl, just in case you're wondering.
Yeah, Benadryl. There you go. That works. My dog knows better because my wife, I wouldn't wake up. My wife would wake up, and you don't want to wake my wife up.
Yeah.
No. You don't want to do that.
No.
The dog has better sense of self-preservation than to wake my wife up. And now it's time for Blue Collar Prepping with that bratty kid sister of the gun blogosphere, Erin. Erin, you spoke last week about having enough food in the event that there was some sort of an Ebola outbreak, which seems kind of unlikely, but it would be nice to have a lot of food around the house. How am I going to have food and store it in a way that it won't go bad on me?
Well, that's a good question, Sean. Now, there are some people who believe in buying the bulk crates of MREs or the pails of dehydrated food that you see on certain Discovery Channel programs. And while those do have their place, they're also bulky and uneconomical and not the sort of thing that I would recommend for this particular situation.
I can understand that. I've got a couple MREs in the car because, it's ready food, but I wouldn't want to live on MREs. There's some health issues with that.
Exactly. A lot of people don't like how they taste, and it's important that you stock what you know you can eat, because in the middle of a disaster is not the time to find out that the survival food you bought doesn't sit well with your stomach, especially if you've got food allergies, if you are gluten intolerant, or if you have children who are just plain picky eaters.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so how am I going to get all this food, and how am I going to get it without spending every last penny I have?
Go ahead and put back what you are already eating now. Just the other week, I was talking to my pastor about this, and he was asking me about MREs. And I told him, a little bit sarcastically, well, there's this amazing technology out there that stores food in airtight containers and stays good for years and years. It's called cans.
Well, they sell a lot of them at the store. Yeah, they do have stuff in cans.
Yes, they do.
But that's not sexy and high-tech.
No, but it works, and that's the important thing.
And it's also cheap.
Especially if you can get them when it's a buy one, get one free, or you can get a coupon. What you do is when you go grocery shopping, if you can get a BOGO, or you can get a good deal, you buy one for your usage, and then you put the other one back in your food storage. Just a little bit at a time, you can build up your food pantry. In addition to cans, there are other things you can get. The bulk package section in supermarkets, where you've got, way down at the bottom, where you've got the big bags of rice, of beans, of pasta. You can get one of those, and then if you put them in the 5-gallon food grade buckets that I mentioned in episode 5, that's a good place to protect them from both the elements and from any bugs that might eat them.
Oh, okay.
One thing to keep in mind, and I may be speaking to the choir here, is that if you are using canned foods, you need can openers. A lot of people probably have a manual can opener, but I imagine there's at least one person out there who's suddenly realizing, hey, all I have is an electric can opener, and if I lose power, I can't open it.
Oh, yeah. See, I've never used an electric can opener. I've always used the manual ones. They make some really nice ones that lock in case you don't have quite the grip strength to, you're older or you got carpal tunnel or something. You can get a nice one, but for the most part, I'm using the one that's cost about $10.
You can get them for all sorts of ridiculous prices. The ones that I'm going to recommend here, you can get for $2. They are military can openers, and the particular link that we have on the show notes links to an Amazon page that has a P38 and a P51 can opener.
Oh yeah, those are a lot of fun.
They are extremely light, they're durable, they're pretty much idiot-proof, and they belong in any prepper's bug-out bag or pantry, but as I'm told, they do not belong on a keychain because the tooth will come loose and will eat up your pants pockets.
They do, yes. I've had that happen to me. It's very unpleasant. So,
yep.
No, don't put it in your pocket. I would recommend personally that everybody get a manual can opener and throw it in the drawer with the rest of their stuff. And yeah, you can totally have P38s and P51s, but if you're bugging out, you're not taking 10 tons of cans with you. And if you are staying in your house, there's no reason you can't reach in, grab the normal can opener, and open your cans. It's a lot faster, a lot easier.
That is true. What if your can opener breaks?
Yeah. Well, that's true. You should always have a backup.
There you go.
2 is 1, 1 is none, 3 is better.
Exactly. I have included some links to guides on how to do this. 2 of them are books on Amazon. One of them is a link to another prepper's website that tells you how to prepare meals and meals for very, very little money. But in general, as I've said before, when you go grocery shopping, pick up a little extra, 1 or 2 cans, get things on sale, put them aside. Definitely look for bargains. Write the date of the purchase on the cans or in the bags on magic marker, and then store them in a cool, dry place to maximize effectiveness. Do not freeze cans.
So how long is my food going to last in a can?
You would be surprised. The sell-by date is a lot like the expiration dates on medicines. It really means past this date, it's not 100%, and there is a fall-off. Canned food, depending on how you store it, can easily last for 2 years, if not longer. As an interesting historical aside, back in the 1960s, historians found the wreckage of a steamboat that had sunk. And one of the things they found were canned foods in the wreck. They opened them up, and the food was still edible. What the scientists did discover is that certain nutrients, usually vitamins, they lost their efficiency, but the food was still good. It's something to fill you up, and its value as a protein and a carbohydrate still worked. So, one of the other things I would recommend putting aside is get a nice big bottle of multivitamins. Not that I think you're really going to be eating 100-year-old canned food, but in general, if you worry about vitamin deficiency, malnutrition, have some multivitamins that you can take along with your survival rations. Should keep you going.
All right. Well, excellent, Aaron. You keep bringing us these low-buck, easy ways to survive a little bit longer in a bad situation without being really as complicated as it could be.
Well, that's the entire point behind blue-collar prepping, Sean. Thank you.
Where can we read more blue-collar prepping?
Well, you can find me and my other cohorts on our blog. That's bluecollarprepping.blogspot.com. We're there 5 days a week.
All right, Aaron. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
If you'd like to read more from Erin, check out her personal blog, lurkingrhythmically.blogspot.com. So Felons behaving badly. Just last year, in fact, it was almost exactly a year ago, became law, we started allowing firearms in restaurants that served alcohol. In the law, it's places that alcohol is sold and consumed.
Oh no, blood in the streets!
Well, technically it was blood in the bar.
Well,
because it was all guns in bars. Guns in bars.
Yes.
Because Applebee's serves beer, so I guess that makes it a bar.
Yes.
And finally, after a year, they've gotten exactly what they were looking for.
Was it exactly what they were looking for?
Oh, yeah. City police said one man was killed and another wounded after multiple shots were fired inside a business Saturday morning. Incident occurred just before 2:30 a.m. at the Q and Spirits on North Point Boulevard. Authorities said victim number 1 and victim number 2 were found with gunshot wounds. Victim number 1 died at Baptist Medical Center. Victim number 2 was treated and released from the medical center. They updated it, finally, after they tracked down and captured somebody. Around 8 p.m. Saturday, police charged suspect number 1 with murder and possession of a firearm by a convicted felon.
Of course.
Police have issued a warrant for 22-year-old suspect number 2 in connection with the case. He is charged with murder and possession of a firearm by a felon.
Right, because, before you passed the guns and bars law, that guy totally would have left his gun at home.
Right, and so I think we have something good to contrast this with the shooting in Texas. Just recently, 70-some-year-old man, it was an old man, it was not a young spring chicken, got into a gunfight with and defeated 4 people. 4-on-1, hauls out his gun in a Texas bar, kills 2 of them. The other 2 flee shooting, and, well, it turns out it's a felony to have a gun in a bar.
Oh.
And so after he was done shooting those 2 guys, he disappeared. And I think
good.
the funniest part about all of it is, like, nobody's identifying him. But they're all telling what a great guy. Oh, he's a wonderful guy. He walks the waitresses to their cars at night. Such a sweet old man. Have no idea who he was.
Well,
who was that masked man?
I don't know. We've only seen him here every night for 30 years.
Right. We couldn't pick him out of the lineup.
I have no idea who that guy was. No idea. That's interesting.
This Lone Ranger or something snuck in. Let's see here. Suspect number 1 has been convicted. Felony breaking and entering, larceny after breaking and entering, receiving stolen vehicle, possessing stolen goods, I can't even read all this. It's all kinds of felony B&E, larceny, obtained property by false pretenses. The guy's a crook.
Yeah.
And suspect number 2, which at the time of the story, they hadn't captured him yet. Assault on a female, class 1, A1 misdemeanor. So really nice guy. Communicating threats, using a phone to harass, damage to property, simple assault affray, assault on a female. And then once we get all the way down to 2009, so all the way back in 2009, he was arrested for possession of a firearm by a felon, and at the same time, possession of a firearm by a minor.
I was going to say, he's 22 now, and it's 2014, and so that was 5 years ago. So when he was 17, he had already been convicted of a felony.
Yeah, let's see how far we can go down here. January 2009 is 2 misdemeanors. June of 2009, breaking and entering vehicle, principal class I felony. He was convicted of that in October of 2009, and then in November of 2009, he was arrested for possession of a firearm by a felon. So this guy has a long history of being not exactly the nicest person on the planet.
So he was convicted of a felony in, you said October, and then he was arrested again in November?
Yeah, it looks that way. About not quite 2 months separated the conviction and the felon and the next arrest.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. I'm so glad that we were able to release that guy on his own recognizance or whatever it was.
Yeah. And, let's face it, this is all the fault of us crazy concealed handgun permit holders who want to carry guns in bars.
Right. Yeah. So when we passed our guns in bars law, there was a bunch of restaurateurs that said, well, who is gonna pay to screen all the people who are coming in if we post? And the executive director for the TFA said, well, who do you pay now? It's completely illegal to bring your firearm in there now. Who do you pay now to make sure? And they're like, oh, well, we don't care now. It's just when it's legal that we're going to care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just want to grab a hold to him and hug him really tight.
Yeah.
Ooh, I hate these people. So let's talk with Nikki Kenyon about foreign policy for grownups. Nikki, we talked about soft power, and one of the things that you talked about was sanctions. The president has the ability to just say, hey, you're a foreign problem, and we're going to sanction you. Where does he get that kind of authority?
There's a law that's actually called IEEPA. IEEPA. It's the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. And this particular legislation authorizes the President of the United States to declare the existence of an unusual and extraordinary threat to the foreign policy, national security, or economy of the United States that originates from a foreign source. So what it does is it allows the President to use the IEEPA powers based on this threat to block transactions and freeze assets to actually deal with the threat. The libertarians hate this law because there is the potential for abuse. Because you can say, well, anything can be an international emergency. Anything can be classified as a threat to national security, foreign policy, or economy. And sure, and it's understandable. There are some checks to this law. It must be renewed annually. It can be terminated by Congress. But overall, this is a very powerful tool in our foreign policy chest. There are a number of nations and entities that are sanctioned under IEEPA, and there are actually jokes that presidents use the Treasury against our adversaries probably more than they use the armed forces. We've sanctioned Iran under IEEPA. We've sanctioned Russia under IEEPA, especially with all the stuff that's going on in Crimea. We've sanctioned a lot of drug trafficking organizations, transnational criminal organizations, under the Kingpin Act, which is also under IEEPA. So it definitely is a foreign policy tool. It's not something that's used lightly, and it is something that undergoes a lot of legal review.
What exactly does IEEPA allow the president to do? I mean, what's to prevent me from doing business with some of these sanctioned entities?
Well, for example, let's talk about the Kingpin Act. There are several drug trafficking organizations that are actually sanctioned under the Kingpin Act, and there's also a whole host of individuals that go under that. So the Kingpin Act is a anti-narcotics act. So any entity or individual that is found to be a narcotics trafficker is sanctioned under the Kingpin Act. Essentially, if you, as an American, decide that you're going to consciously do business with a DTO or a drug trafficking organization or an individual connected to a DTO, you can be subject to pretty hefty fines, jail time, etc. The Kingpin Act and the executive order that has the Kingpin Act actually prohibits U.S. persons, entities, financial institutions, any U.S. entity at all from doing business with a sanctioned entity. It works. It really does work. For instance, something cool that you probably didn't know is that a lot of DTOs in Central and South America actually invest in soccer clubs and buy soccer clubs.
Soccer clubs?
Yes, soccer clubs. Soccer is a big, huge deal in Central and South America. Big, huge deal. Big money.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of fans, big money, and it allows these DTOs to actually gain a certain amount of credibility and a certain amount of popularity in their areas. So what happens with these soccer clubs is they buy them up, it gives them cred with the local populations, and it also allows them to use these clubs to actually launder money by commingling licit and illicit assets. So if we block the access of these soccer clubs to the US dollar, it has two effects. So number one, it doesn't allow these organizations, these clubs, to do any kind of business within the U.S. financial system, within the dollar. And secondly, it actually names and shames. So the list, what we call the specially designated nationals list, is a very public list. So any advertisers, any financial institutions, anybody who does business with this particular soccer club will pull their money. They don't want to do business with a criminal entity or an entity that's owned by criminals. So they start de-risking, they start pulling their money, and guess what? These clubs close down. There have been several instances where the U.S. Treasury has actually sanctioned these clubs and wound up causing them to close down. So that's a pretty big deal, and these sanctions are pretty effective. It is the same with foreign actors. It's a soft power tool. It allows administrations to work to change foreign leaders' thinking and forces them to do a bit of cost-benefit analysis to really find out whether what they are doing is beneficial to them, especially, since a lot of them do business in the US dollar and use the US financial system. So it allows us to deal with these foreign adversaries without using military force, which number one is unpopular and number two is really expensive.
All right, Nikki, this sounds very interesting. Glad you were back for this week and hope to see you again next week.
Thanks, Sean. It's great to be back.
Nikki blogs at thelibertyzone.com. Strange gun laws. What do you got for me, Adam?
So this week we've got 3917-1361. This is another Tennessee law. It's titled Execution of Documents by Sheriff or Chief of Police. Now, if you've been a gunny for very long, eventually you want to buy the fun stuff. I'm talking about National Firearms Act stuff. Suppressors, machine guns, short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, all that good stuff. In order to get that, you have to basically get the chief law enforcement officer, which is going to be either the sheriff of your county or the chief of police of the city that you live in, to sign off on your forms that say basically, this guy can have, he's allowed to pay the tax on whatever it is that he's trying to buy. In some non-permissive environments, the chiefs of police or the sheriffs just won't sign anything at all.
Yeah, that's the status here in Wake County, North Carolina, as far as I know.
So the way you get around that is, you go and get a trust. And so a lot of people do that. But in Tennessee, you don't have to do that because this particular law basically says the sheriff or chief of police of the city of residence of a person purchasing any firearm defined by the National Firearms Act shall execute within 15 business days of any request all documents required to be submitted by the purchaser if the purchaser is not prohibited from possessing firearms pursuant to basically our version of the GCA. So as long as you're not a prohibited person, they have to execute the documents. A couple of years ago, there was a gentleman who was acting kind of,
Could we say he was calling unnecessary attention to himself?
Yes. So a couple of years ago, we had a gentleman who was calling unnecessary attention to himself, and the chief law enforcement officer watches the news and saw that this gentleman had an incident with some local police officers, and he said, "Hey, I kind of recognize that name." Looked in his paperwork, and sure enough, in his stack of forms to sign was a form from this guy. And so he, according to the law, he signed it because this gentleman was not a prohibited person, but he was acting a little, he was drawing attention to himself in a manner that was not consistent with normal operation. So he wrote on here something to the effect of, and I don't have the exact words, "I am only signing this because I'm required by law to do so." Basically, he sent a letter to the ATF saying, "I'm signing this, but if it were up to me, I would not let this guy have anything." So the ATF denied it. So they sent it back, and the guy sued the sheriff. It went to the Tennessee Supreme Court, I think. But anyway, it came back. It says execute. It doesn't say you can only sign the name. It doesn't say that you can't go and, write this little note. So we have execution, but there's now a loophole.
Seems to me that there was no real reason not to let him have whatever it was he was asking for. He wasn't a prohibited person. They should have let him have it. This guy, get off my side,
Yeah.
Miguel wants to talk to us about mindset, and he has a very scary video that he'd like everybody to take a look at. So check out the show notes and watch the video and listen to what Miguel has to say about mindset and how close is too close, the Tueller Drill. So Miguel, you showed me this video. Tell me where this place is. What's this video of? Where is it?
This happened in Nicaragua some years ago. It is an interview that was, I guess, a little local TV station was doing. It starts with an interview with a woman. She was trying to get a restraining order served to the husband. And she used to be the common law wife of the gentleman. And for whatever reason, this guy loses his freaking mind.
You can see this in the video. Just looking at him, wow, every red flag you can see. Man, it was look at him. It was like back away slowly, don't make eye contact.
It was like the body language was all wrong on this guy. It's like it was tense. The video doesn't show that the three police officers approached the guy, but oh my god, I mean, the guy that's when you see in the video, he flips, he pulls out this big knife. It's almost a foot long knife, and then starts lunging at the cops.
And I'm like, okay, where's the bullets? And he does not get filled full of lead.
This is the mindset you have in countries like that, in Nicaragua and South America. The cops are used to, when they challenge somebody else, they obey. They never have to really face somebody they consider regular people. that was a mistake. They thought it was a normal guy. He would dare to challenge them. And usually when they're challenged, it's unarmed. So they can pretty much beat the crap out of them, throw them in the back of the patrol car and go and whisk away. But their mindset was never trained to think, somebody pulls out a knife on me, I better have my gun out. And if a guy makes a weird move, I'm going to pump him full of lead. It's a deadly weapon.
After the initial flurry of activity, they kind of got him to not attack, but he was certainly not safe. And the cop that you see on video, he's holding his gun behind him like he's afraid it's gonna, he's gonna lose it. Why are you not pointing at the target?
You have 2 police officers with handguns and 1 police officer with an AK-47. You have the superiority of firepower, and you don't use it. It's mindset. They never were either trained or actually faced a situation like that before, and they reverted back to what they know, which is, I'm going to try to grab you and beat you down, which is stupid.
When the guy was on the other side of the fence, we can go back to negotiating. There's no necessity just because he has a knife to shoot him, just because he has attacked before to shoot him. But that doesn't mean don't point the gun at him.
Be ready.
Yeah, see, the guy has already demonstrated a willingness to use that deadly force. Point the gun at him and make it very clear that if he does it again, the first thing that's going to happen is he's going to get shot. The second thing that's going to happen is he's going to get shot. And probably the third through 37th thing that's going to happen is going to get shot.
Once the listeners look at the video and they're going to go, oh my God, well, they're stupid. Now I want them to think about something. How many of our listeners that have a gun and have a concealed weapons permit have come to the grasp that something like that may happen? Something so violent that they have not prepared for. Because it doesn't matter just because you bought a gun and you got that nice little ID card from the state and you carry your weapon every day, that means you're ready. It's like the old saying, just because you bought a guitar, you ain't Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, for sure.
Have you prepared yourself, number one, how to properly use the gun accurately? And number two, have you prepared yourself mentally?
Exactly.
Forget about Hollywood, forget about what you see on TV. There is no warning signs. You have something called the internet. Go look at videos. Go look how brutal, how quick, how fast, how decisive the criminals are.
Watch some of the prison stabbing videos. You don't get any conversation beforehand. You don't get a build-up. You don't have some dramatic tension like you do in the Hollywood.
Not like that. I mean, they are quick, they're silent, they're deadly. You have to realize that there is no rules. Self-defense is not a sporting event. There's no referee out there. It's going to tell you, he's going to blow the whistles, and now you guys can engage. That doesn't exist.
No, there's no points for style.
No points for style. The only point is survival.
Yeah, quick or dead.
Exactly.
Quick or dead. That's your two choices. You linked to the original Dennis Tueller How Close is Too Close article.
Yes.
It appeared in the March 1983 issue of SWAT magazine, and something that leaped out at me. We all know 21 feet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tueller Drill, 21 feet, 21, 20, 21, 21. So 22, you're safe, right? Oh, no. It would be safe to say then that an armed attacker at 21 feet is well within your danger zone. Not crossing the line into your danger zone, but well within. So that 21 feet is that's red line.
Yeah, exactly.
But that doesn't mean you're out of the danger.
No, it also is going to depend on your reaction time. Are you a well-trained 25-year-old, or you're an old fart like me in the 50s that haven't shot in a while and fumbles the draw? Okay?
Exactly.
So you have to adapt and prepare for your particular case. Maybe, like I said, maybe it's like if it's a 4-inch blade, maybe the 21 feet will do. But if it's a machete, brother, there's 3 feet worth extra.
Right.
So you gotta prepare. You gotta prepare, and one of the things is mind. I'm not talking preparation here. I'm talking your mind. That is the important thing. We go back to the Colonel Jeff Cooper on his Principles of Personal Defense. I mean, this is a book that we should be reading at least once a month. And in this case, these two cops fail on decisiveness and aggressiveness and ruthlessness. They were not decisive enough, they were not aggressive enough, and they were not ruthless enough. And one of them paid with his life, and the other two were gravely wounded. If we want to survive, we need to understand that people, when they get violent, when they don't have the moral limit, that moral compass, we're screwed.
Exactly. Self-defense is you're either quick or you are dead. And you need to cultivate that mindset that is, all right, at this point, when somebody crosses this line, all the rules go out the window, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that I walk away.
We are set by the law to a very narrow window of action. We are kind of cheat ourselves to a certain set of imaginary rules of engagement that will kill us. I mean, it will reduce the effectiveness of that window. Nobody is going to ask you to say, okay, well, you have to give him a chance after you shoot him once, or try to come. No, the guy's attacking you. That's it. The law is telling you, yes, within these two very narrow parameters, you can do whatever is required to save your life. Use it. That's it. Simple.
All right, Miguel. It's good to have you. See you next week.
See you next week.
Get more Miguel Gonzalez daily at gunfreezone.net. Fun with headlines. What do you got?
The point of Fun with Headlines is to point out the danger of staying quote-unquote informed just by reading the headlines or the stuff you see on social media. A lot of times, the headline says one thing, but the story says something completely different. This week, we have a story that I picked up locally, but it ended up going up nationally. The headline is, Dog Named Lazarus Survives Euthanasia Attempt.
Wow, now that's ironic. Had a dog named Lazarus. They tried to kill him and it failed.
Yeah, exactly. Except no. What happened was there was a stray that came in. Nobody wanted it. And so they decided to euthanize it. And the euthanasia didn't work. So they named the dog Lazarus.
So really the headline should have been, unnamed dog survives being put down. So they named him Lazarus.
Right.
And that would have not have gotten anywhere near as many clicks.
No, it's total clickbait.
It's a cute dog.
Yeah. But, again, the danger of reading just headlines is that you wind up with something like this. It's not really a fake headline, but it doesn't actually portray what really happened.
Well, how many times have we seen that?
Every week.
Well, Barron wants to talk to us about credit card and debit card security in Tech Tips with the Barron. Barron, I just got a new credit card from my bank, and they said that the reason they're sending me a new credit card is because I was involved in a Home Depot credit card breach. What the heck is going on here?
I'm glad I'm not the only one that had somebody try and take their credit card from Home Depot. I actually got a new credit card in the middle of August, and I traced it to the same breach that finally came out beginning of September. And basically what's happening is people were skimming credit card information off the point of sale systems inside of Home Depot.
Point of sale, you're talking the register, right?
Yes, the register. You go and swipe your card. If you're running debit, you punch in your PIN or you sign the pad. They were storing the information off into a server, and somebody was pilfering the information out of that server.
Wait a minute. There's no security on that?
Oh, there's security, but it ends up they didn't exactly hire the most trustworthy of persons. There were people who left Home Depot in 2008 warning them of serious security concerns. And the company didn't want to listen, which sadly is the forever tale in the security industry. People warn of a serious security vulnerability. Everyone says, oh, that's not likely to happen. And then sure enough, 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road, somebody goes and executes it, and millions of people are left with the damage in the wake.
Well, this is terrible, Barron. I'm using the same credit card at Amazon, and this goes over the internet. How much less secure is that? I mean, these are people that have the machine right in front of me. What about my Amazon stuff?
In order to take care of credit card transactions, you have to be what's known as PCI compliant. And there's a set of requirements for internet transactions, and there's a set of requirements for point of sale transactions. And the internet requirements are actually more stringent than the point of sale requirements. The reason being is they figure that physical security will be enough to protect the point of sale.
Wait, you're telling me that my transactions on Amazon over the internet are more secure than swiping my card at Home Depot?
The way the system is currently designed, yes.
That ain't right.
No, it is not right, and it is really screwed up. Honestly, it is something that a lot of people have been screaming about for a while. Europe, for example, they don't use just the straight magnetic strip anymore. They actually use what's called chip and pin. And there's a three-way handshake that happens with the card. There's always a pin involved. And there's numerous validations on the card to ensure that it is actually the card. Because what most of these people do is they'll take that mag strip and copy it and then just put it on a fake card and then go around and start buying stuff with the mag strip because there's no authentication. It's just the mag strip. It has the credit card number on it, and yeah, it is who it says it is.
Are we going to end up doing this?
I would hope so. I don't know of any current planned rollout. I do know that there are a couple credit card companies that are actually starting to look at doing it.
So if we're stuck with an old system that people can just scam us out of money, what can we do to protect ourselves?
For point of sale, when you're going to the grocery store, going to Costco, going to Home Depot, or any place else, use cash. Only use your debit card at an ATM. Watch your bank accounts like a hawk. The number one thing you can do to protect yourself from bank fraud is watch your bank accounts. The second you see a problem, contact your bank, notify them of the bank fraud. Your bank may often say, oh, you're a victim of identity theft. No, you're not. They're a victim of bank fraud. Banks have a nasty habit of playing us off as being the victim when truthfully it is the banks being stolen from. The banks are the ones who are responsible for verifying that we are actually who we say we are and that we're performing the transactions as desired. Banks haven't been implementing the security measures necessary to properly protect them from bank fraud. The end result is now people are stealing from the banks, and to try and protect themselves from the losses, they want to blame you and I. They want to say, hey, you didn't properly secure your credit card. You didn't do this, that, or the other thing. Well, you know what? You guys could be issuing chip and pin instead of just a straight mag strip.
Is there a difference between a credit card and a debit card?
There actually is. The difference between a debit card and a credit card is mainly where the source of funds comes from. The one thing that a credit card will usually ensure you is that you are protected from the theft. You are isolated. Banks, for the most part, are pretty good when somebody steals a debit card of reimbursing the funds back into the account. If someone steals your credit card, though, and you deny the transactions, you are in no way liable, no ifs, ands, or buts for those transactions. What actually ends up happening, credit card company or the bank back charges it, and the retailer just ends up eating that as a loss of theft.
I used to work at Disneyland, and we went through some very stringent cash control procedures back in 1987 when I started working for them. And it was very specifically explained to us. You have to read the name on the back. You have to match the signature. And how many times have we seen, so you hand somebody the credit card, you try to sign something, and they've handed you the credit card back before you've even signed it. They don't care. They don't pay attention. Then they're going to act like it's my fault when somebody pretends to be me and steals money out of my account? No, they're the retailer. It's their fault.
Well, and yes, it's definitely their fault. And at the same time, I also lay blame on the banks because, again, chip and pin instead of a stupid mag strip. Because you could go and forge a card with a fake mag strip, but with whatever name you want on it. The mag strip just says what account to deduct from. You can have a matching signature on the back of the card, so the retailer could do everything right, but the card is an actual well-done forgery, and truthfully at that point it's the fault of basically the banking agency, the ones responsible for issuing the card. At the same time, though, I am more than happy to point the finger at a retailer because there was a fantastic story on Reddit where a guy, instead of signing his signature on the digital signature pad like you have at Walmart when you run your credit card, he would just draw things. And he did this for, I think it was almost 6 months, and he finally got busted after he drew a, how do I say this, PG rated, a phallic symbol, at which point the person behind the cash register finally stopped and said, "Sir, I'm going to need to see your card and ID."
Well, one of the things my wife does is she writes down on the back of her card CID, and then she's very careful to tell them, "Oh, thank you very much for reading the back of my card and demanding to see ID. You have done a great job," so that they get used to the idea of actually looking.
Yep.
I'd like to see more people do that, but yeah, it really bothers me to see both the bank doesn't seem to care. They're not implementing the kind of security they could implement, and the retailers aren't doing just the basics.
Just the basic verification to ensure that the most basic of pilfering has not occurred.
Excellent. All right, Barron. It's great to have you. See you next week.
See you next week, Sean.
Barron still blogs at the-minuteman.org.
And I just wanted to add something to this. If you use your debit card at a point of sale, you want to run it as a credit card. A lot of times they'll give you an option, enter your PIN, and I always just cancel that. The bank is not legally obligated to give you the same protections if you use your PIN at a point of sale as they are with your credit card. So if you run it as a credit card, you have those protections. Check your agreement to make sure what the policy is. My agreement actually changed yesterday. So my bank now does offer me the same protection if I use a PIN as if I run it as a credit. The other thing that I do is I don't opt in to the overdraft protection. So if somebody does steal my card, they can't spend more money than I have.
That's also helpful.
So I had my debit card stolen in 2003 physically. And the guy spent $800 out of my $150 that I had. So if somebody gave me a check for $600, I couldn't deposit it because then I would be still $50 in the negative.
And the bank straighten that out for you?
Yeah. It's less than 24 hours. I had all my money back.
Just saw a story come in. Apparently, it was only updated about 3 hours ago. Crime rate continues to decline in NC and most triangle jurisdictions. This is getting to the point where it's not even a surprise anymore. Crime's been going down, it's been going down, it's been going down. And I was here in North Carolina in the early 90s when I was in the Army. From 1990 to 1994, I lived in Fayetteville. The middle of the crack epidemic. Crime has been so much lower than it has been since then. And here's a interesting, they have a nice little graph here. Crime declines. The state's overall crime rate per 100,000 residents has dropped 24.4% in the last decade. So since 2004, this doesn't even include the 90s when actually crime was bad. But since 2004, the crime rate has gone down nearly 25%.
Wow.
For somebody like me who pays attention to how many concealed handgun permits there are in North Carolina, we've been seeing 20% per year growth in concealed handgun permits in most counties in North Carolina. Overall, statewide, we're seeing 20% increases. So we can't say, hey, look, more guns, less crime. What we can say is more guns clearly does not equal more crime, because we definitely have more guns. And we don't have more crime. We have less.
Yeah, that's true. That's kind of one of those things that I like to point out to people, and they just say, oh, well, the crime rate would have dropped more if it hadn't been for all those guns. It's like, no, you're an idiot.
Yeah, statewide, the crime rate has dropped 7% last year, continuing a downward trend that began in 2005. The rate of violent crime, murder, rape, robbery, and aggravated assault was 33.5 per 100,000, while the property crime rate, burglary, larceny, motor vehicle theft, was 3,166.6 per 100,000. The most dramatic decline has been motor vehicle thefts, and that's because anti-theft. If you ever look at the motor vehicle theft, there's the graph on motor vehicle theft just suddenly falls off a cliff a couple of years back. Apparently they're much more difficult to steal cars. We can definitely say that more guns has not equaled more crime. We can't say anything else, but we can definitely say that the whole, more guns and it's going to be blood in the streets, no. Nope. Weird wants to talk to us about a particularly brutal ad campaign against a person trying to run for Gabby Giffords' old seat, I believe it is, in Arizona. Well, hey, Weird, how's it going?
Oh, it's going well, Sean. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm eager to hear what kind of anti-gun nuts you got going on this time.
This week, we're going to be talking about the Martha McSally run for Congress. She seems to be under attack by the pack that is run by Gabby Giffords and her crazy husband.
Yeah, McSally, she's running for Congress in Arizona, right?
She is.
What evil things is Martha McSally doing?
Well, evidently, Martha McSally supports the gun show loophole.
Oh no, the gun show loophole. How's she doing that?
Well, she's not actually doing that because the gun show loophole isn't about gun shows or loopholes, but she supports private sales of firearms and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, they are attacking her and blaming her for a couple of murders.
How are they doing that? What are they attacking her with?
They're attacking her with some campaign ads here. I think we've got some audio for that.
My daughter was murdered with a gun by a man with a criminal record. He bought the gun at a gun show without a background check, no questions asked. Martha McSally supports the gun show loophole.
Her daughter was killed with a gun by a man who had a criminal record.
And note again, the gun's the important part. The man is secondary.
I noticed that.
And of course, Sean, he was a total choir boy.
Yeah, obviously a total choir boy. How did this come about? Is this a bad breakup? He was just tired of her, or what?
This guy, first up, he's got an extensive criminal record. He's his first time he was charged with violent crimes started at age 12. And in this instance, this young woman and her boyfriend were somehow witnesses or somehow involved in a drive-by shooting. And they packed him up. Two guys packed him up, drove him out into the middle of the desert, and shot both of them.
Oh, yeah. So then what you're saying is that they totally needed the gun to kill somebody when they drove them out to the desert.
If you've got two unarmed people and you're out in the middle of the desert, the only way to kill them is with a gun.
Yeah, totally couldn't do that with a bat or an axe. Or, it's the freaking desert. You could leave them out there and they would die.
Though, to be fair, the boyfriend did survive, thankfully. So,
well, yeah, I'm glad somebody's lived.
Yeah, but either way, the gun was totally necessary. That's really, if guns were as legal as murder, no one would be murdered with guns.
That's true.
The claim that he bought the gun at the gun show, I can't find any evidence of even what gun was used or anything like that. The man turned himself into police once they figured out that he was a suspect, and doesn't sound like he brought his gun with him. I don't think they ever found that gun. There's no reference to where he acquired it or how he acquired it. So I think that very well might be a lie.
It sounds very much like what we have is a distraught mother who has a dead daughter, and the suspects have now been convicted and are in jail for the rest of their lives. And instead of blaming the person, she wants to blame you and me.
That's correct. I mean, it really is our fault because we can buy and sell our property as we choose.
Exactly. Now, this guy, he's been in and out of jail, mostly in, since he was 12 years old. The police won't keep him in jail where he belongs, yet the problem here is the fact that I could sell a gun to somebody who lives in the same state as me.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
It does to them.
Yeah, well, there we go. What else they got going on with the McSally campaign?
We've also got this secondary one about a divorce gone horribly wrong, and we've got audio for that as well.
My daughter was just 19 when she told her boyfriend the relationship was over, and he got a gun and he shot her and my husband.
Now, this ad has been pulled, I understand. It's been pulled because McSally has made some noise about wanting to close the stalker gap, whatever that means exactly. But this guy was already barred from owning a gun in the first place, wasn't he?
Yes, they started off they were married in 1996 and divorced in 1998, so not a particularly long marriage. In 1997, he was cited for using a telephone to threaten or terrify. Also in 1997, disorderly conduct. In 1998, he pled guilty to unlawful sale or possession of marijuana. And then in 2000, arrested for assaulting Kara.
Okay, so wait. Misdemeanor domestic assault. That's a federal bar to owning a firearm. What gap are these people talking about? There's no stalker gap. This guy was barred federally from owning a firearm.
And then that goes double suit for the unlawful sale of possession of marijuana. So yeah, no, this guy cannot own a gun legally. Period.
I don't know what to say. It's like these people don't even understand the laws that they already have, much less the laws that they're trying to pass. They're just throwing up stuff against the wall and seeing what's going to stick.
I mean, that's exactly it. I remember a friend of mine gave it a great example of you get yourself a country road and the local teenagers speed down the road. It's got a speed limit of, say, 65 miles an hour, and they're drag racing down at speeds upward of 90 miles an hour. This idea is to drop the speed limit down to 35 miles an hour, and that'll stop them.
Yeah, that'll make a whole lot of sense. But you're right. That is pretty much gun control right there.
That's right. None of these laws would have stopped anything. And honestly speaking, the quote-unquote gun show loophole has nothing to do with any of this. Private sale or otherwise. It's illegal, and it's illegal, and it's illegal.
And once again, you've uncovered an example of gun control people arguing in bad faith.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Weird. It's good to talk to you. See you next week.
Yep, see you next week, Sean.
In addition to appearing here, Weird is a regular host at The Squirrel Report and blogs at weirdworld.com. That's WEERD world.com. Stuff that grinds my gears.
What do you got?
Intellectuals.
Intellectuals? But they're smart people. They're smarter than us.
No, they're not. No, they are not. Don't even start that garbage. We're so smart. No, you know what they are? They're people that have learned to parrot back what their schools have taught them. These aren't people who think for themselves. These aren't people, they have no claim to the heritage of intellectuals. You know, back in the day, intellectuals were the people who were saying, you get to be in charge because your daddy said so? You're a king, you're a prince, you're a duke because your daddy was a king or a prince or a duke? Well, how does that make you a useful leader of our society? What makes you the person that should be able to decide for us? No. People should be allowed to decide for themselves. That was a perfectly legitimate thing to say.
Right.
Well, guess what these people are doing now? Oh, we've gone to the right schools. We know all the right information, and you don't agree with us, so clearly you're stupid. You stupid rednecks from flyover country. You need to shut up and do what we, your intellectual betters, tell you.
I went to Harvard. How could you possibly know what's best for you?
Seriously. I wish I could remember his name, but the guy who ran National Review, I don't know what his name is, but the guy who said he'd rather be ruled by the first 200 people out of the Boston phone book than the faculty of Harvard. Because let's face it, 200 random people are smarter than anybody, all the people at the university. You can't be dumber than a bunch of people who all think the same thing because all their friends think the same thing. Isn't that like the definition of peer pressure? Isn't that what your parents told you not to do? Oh, all your friends want to jump off a cliff. Would you jump off a cliff?
Yes, but Sean, they're being nonconformist by thinking the same thing.
There was this girl I was sweet on back when I was in junior high school. And one of the things that she did that just marked her in my book as just totally awesome is she went to London with her parents and she went to Trafalgar Square.
Okay.
And back in the day, we're talking the early 80s, in London, Trafalgar Square was where the punks hung out. Right?
Okay.
You're talking spike hair, mohawks.
Right.
Safety pins through their cheek, punks. And she's talking to one of them. This girl's like in the 7th grade, and she's talking to one of these punks. And she's like, well, why do you have blue hair and torn jeans? And he's like, I want to be nonconformist. I don't want to be, told by the man what to do. I want to be different. And she looks around. She's like, I don't know if you've noticed, but you look just like everybody else. I think you're conforming with just a different set of people.
Ding.
Yeah, that's the truth right there. Oh. It's a false choice they're presenting. It's not our heavy thinkers versus their heavy thinkers. It's the intellectuals against all you unwashed masses. So just shut up. Well, screw you guys. You don't know my life. You can't tell me what to do. And how can anybody who doesn't know you have an idea how to run your life better than you do?
But they just know. They know.
Yeah. I wish they understood the difference between knowing and feeling.
Well, it's the same thing, right?
Yeah, that is kind of the view. If you feel something really strongly, it must be true. No, not necessarily. I felt some pretty strong things for some people that I'm thinking, oh God, what the heck was I thinking that about her for? That didn't make it true. That just made me stupid. So, Adam?
Yes?
What's bothering you today?
People who really feel that Steve Jobs invented the smartphone.
Well, didn't he? I mean,
No.
like everything technologically was Steve Jobs.
No.
I don't know about that Wozniak character, but the Jobs.
Oh, man. Ugh. So, here's the thing. I got my first, what you would call smartphone, in 1999. I can remember Samsung having a phone with a touchscreen in 1995. I bought my first Windows phone in 2003, and I was using that Windows phone to watch the Apple WWDC in 2007, where Steve Jobs is on stage saying, we got this new device. It does email, it does video, and it makes phone calls. And I went, yeah, my 4-year-old phone does that. What's going on there? Occasionally, I will post something on my blog about how the iPhone is finally, they're only now 2 years behind Android, even though Android started after the iPhone. And somebody will say, well, Steve Jobs invented the iPhone and, everybody else is just stealing that product. And I'm like, no, that's not how it happened.
I've often thought that what these people need to run these smartphones, they need to have me come in and explain to them how what their product is wrong, why it's wrong, why it's not doing what it's supposed to. Why does it do this? Why? Why does it do this? I want to smack them upside the head sometimes. And it's both sides. I've run an Android. If I had my druthers, I would prefer to have iTunes on my Android phone. That would make my life simpler.
I would agree with that.
But neither one of them gets it exactly right.
Yeah. I just, I have a moral aversion to Apple products now, particularly because of that one incident.
Yeah, well.
So.
Nobody likes fanatics.
No.
Well, that's our show for the week. We'd like to thank Rob Allen for our music, and thank you for listening to the GunBlog VarietyCast. Constructive criticism can be sent to Sean at SeanSorrentino.com and hate mail to WizardPC@GunsCarsTech.com. Show notes can be found at GunBlogVarietyCast.com/episode 8.